Welcome to episode 36 of the 24-Hour Hustle Show. And today we got special guest, scene editor of the Post-Gazette, Natalie Bencivenga.
Oh, you said that so perfectly.
Beautiful. Welcome to the 24-Hour Hustle Show. I'm your host, Anthony Freeze, and this is the show where we get the opportunity to sit down with amazing guests and find out all about their stories, their struggles, and also their success. If this is the first time you're finding out about us, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit notifications so you can get these every single week on Friday on 12 p.m. But today, we got Natalie on the show. I've been following a lot of the work that you've been doing for a while, ever since we got the opportunity to actually meet at Julius's event, who was also on the show. Julius Boatwright had an event, and we got a chance to connect there and talk there. And ever since then, I was like, man, this conversation is great. We definitely got to connect one day and do something. So we finally get the opportunity to do that today and chat about all the different things you got going on, and it is amazing. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It was so great when I got to meet you that night at Julius Boatwright's event, because I was like, oh, this is a guy that gets it. He knows what's going on.
Right.
Because when you were telling me all the things that you're working on, it's just so inspiring. I love being around other people that have vision.
Right. Yeah, I can tell we definitely had similar mindsets. Like from the books you were talking about, I was like, oh, okay, she's actually on top of this stuff. I'm like, all right, this is actually an intellectual conversation. I was like, you don't encounter that very often. So I was like, yeah, this is good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've been following a lot of things that you've been doing with, setting the scene and the things that you do at the Post-Gazette. I mean, you're doing amazing work.
Thank you.
You're killing it. Definitely proud of all the things that you're doing. So I'm glad that we get the opportunity to, share with the people that may not know all the things that you're doing, get a chance to find out about that. So for the people who don't know who you are, give us your name, your background, and some of the things that you're doing right now.
Yeah, so my name's Natalie Bencivenga, and I am the scene editor at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So that means I cover all of the philanthropic events, all of the nonprofit community events, and just really all the great work that's going on in the city of Pittsburgh. And there is a lot to cover because Pittsburgh is a really giving town, big and small ways. People in this community really come out for each other, which I personally love. That's what makes me feel Pittsburgh proud. So I do that. And then an offshoot of that is I co-host and co-produce the weekly lifestyle web show called Setting the Scene, and that's S-E-E-N, with the style editor Sarah Bachnick. And we go around the community and check out hot spots, things to do, people that everybody should know about, and new events or places to shop, dine, all of the good things that are going on in the city. And that keeps me pretty busy. And and then on top of that, I do the advice column called Ask Natalie, which was recently digitally syndicated, which was really exciting.
Congrats.
Thank you. And my parents are happy because I use my social work degree at least a little bit.
They're like, you're putting it to use.
I know. So that's pretty cool. I love doing that as well. And then on my own, I have another project called The Broadcast PGH, which is a podcast that I co-host and co-produce with Kim Lyons, who is a phenomenal journalist in the city of Pittsburgh. And that show works to amplify women's voices in the city and beyond.
That is awesome. I love it because you're definitely in the media aspect. I love media and putting stuff out there and content. I just love what you're doing with all the different things from the podcast to the web series. It's just amazing things.
Thank you.
But, for people who, get the opportunity to find out how you got into that, what inspired you to get into that space, or what were some of the things that you experienced growing up that maybe led to you going in that direction?
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't anticipate getting into journalism. I'd always loved writing. And it's funny how your passions find a way to seep into other parts of your world, even when you're kind of ignoring them a little bit. But I didn't really think you could make a living as a journalist. So when I decided to go to college, I thought, I'll go into medicine. Both my parents are in healthcare, and I'm really good at science and math. Like this will be what I'm going to do. And when I got into medical school, I realized I just wasn't sure if my heart was in it. Off camera, we were talking a little bit about how competitive I can be. So I think what ended up happening was it's easy to get really competitive when you're pre-med because everybody is vying for so many spots. There's only so many, and it gets pretty crazy. I mean, I saw kids throwing up in the bathroom before an organic chemistry test.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was insane. So when I finally got off that wheel, I realized, like, is this what I really want to do with my life? I think I would be a good doctor, but is this where my heart really is? So I deferred my seat for a year. And I'm really glad that I did that because I decided to pursue more creative endeavors. And I said to my parents, well, if nothing happens in a year, I'll go to school. And they were actually okay with it because both being in the medical field, my dad's a chiropractor and my mom's a nurse, they saw the issues that came along with that. And so they were okay that I decided to step back. I think a lot of people were sort of like, weren't your parents ready to kill you? And I'm like, my parents have always supported me, so, and I always did what I needed to do. Yeah. So they were open-minded. They knew I would go to school in a year if I didn't. That was our trade-off. So having said that, I ended up running my own webzine for 5 years, and I met my business partner in New York, and it was a really exciting time because I had a crash course in everything from marketing to business management to learning how to hire and fire people. I had 14 writers that I had to hire on my own. I had to understand that process. I got the webzine up to about 25,000 readers a month, and it was truly through just the idea of understanding analytics, because social media, all of this was sort of brand new. This is going back 10, 12 years. So it was a real webzine. Like, everything was still in Adobe Flash. I mean, it was
wow.
Like you're downloading a webzine before it became a website, which we learned eventually, like 2 years in. They were like, we should just make this a website. Yeah. But you really it was a different ballgame. And Facebook and Twitter were really just starting to explode. But I really understood from that point, because I had no money to do any of these things, how do I utilize these free marketing platforms? Because that's how I looked at Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
And now you've got a million of them. But then it was really just the two of them. And how do you utilize these? So I did that for a long time, and then from that I started doing a lot of national media work with the webzine, and I met some people in New York that told me, you should really go back to school. You're really good at all of this relationship talk. Don't just be a talking head. Get your degree. And I said, I don't want to get my PhD. I mean, that's why I didn't, I didn't want to do med school. And they were like, what are you talking about? Pitt has one of the best social work programs in the whole country. Go there. And I was like, I didn't know that.
Right.
Okay. So I went back to Pitt, got my master's in social work, and then started working as a licensed therapist. I worked with children that had severe mental illness in the homes. So I would go into people's homes all over the communities of this city and beyond and work with children and families. And then I also ran the webzine, ended up parting ways over some creative differences after about 5 years, and then the Post-Gazette job presented itself. I applied, said, well, maybe they'll let me blog for them. I had no idea that, I was like, they're not going to be crazy to hire me. I mean, I'm not a real journalist. I'm kind of winging all of this. But I don't think I had enough confidence in my abilities, and I'm glad that other people saw what I didn't see in myself yet, And I think that's sort of what happens to a lot of us when we're striking out on our own, is just to have the foresight to think that you could do something on your own is a big deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't even go to that level. So why can't we give ourselves enough credit to say, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm good enough. Maybe I'm worthy enough. And that's really hard for a lot of us, I think. Don't you think? I mean, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having the belief in yourself is definitely the biggest part of that. One of the best books that I think I've ever read is What People Say When They Talk to Themselves. And I talk about this on the show a lot. Your mindset is definitely the starting point. And the next point from that is your belief. Because if you don't believe enough in yourself to do something based off the things that you put into your mindset, you're not going to want to do it. So one of the things that I found out is that why people don't believe in themselves is that because they're not getting enough positive recognition to kind of build up the belief in the first place. Whether it's based off the people that they're around, the things that they things they read or watch on TV, or the people that they associate with, they don't get enough of it. So that's one of the reasons why I actually wanted to start a media company, because I wanted to be that assurance that of putting positive out there and say, you're good enough, or, giving them the resources to learn different things, because, a lot of people don't believe in themselves enough. So belief is definitely a big part of that. So, if somebody can get the right resources or read the right books or associate themselves with the right people and build that belief, you can actually get to a lot of things.
Well, and I think that's an excellent point. And to that point, I remember I got to hear Ariane Huffington speak once. And she said something that has always stuck with me, and it's the idea that collaboration is the new competition. And the idea of we're not living in islands anymore when it comes to media, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to business. these worlds are bleeding into each other, they're overlapping, and really the only way to succeed in the new world, in my opinion, is through collaborative efforts, building bridges, making connections, not isolating ourselves, being social, learning how to network, which I find interesting because we're in more of a socially isolated period than ever before, even though we have multiple forms of communication. But is anyone really talking?
Right.
Or are we just talking at each other instead of towards and with each other and having a real dialogue and a real conversation about things that matter, which is why it was so great when we met that night, because I love to go deep with people.
Right.
I don't want to just talk about the weather. I really want to get to know somebody, and when I was chatting with you, you were just so energized and so enthusiastic, and you had so many great ideas, and just to see how far you've come in such a relatively short amount of time, to me, is not only inspiring, but it just shows you that when you put it out there and you really mean it and you're trying your hardest, it starts to come back.
Right, absolutely.
It
absolutely does. I mean, one of the things, and to your point as far as like people talking at each other, they're not there to necessarily connect. And I feel like that's what you do as well. Like, you want to have an engaging conversation with someone and actually make a connection on maybe some mutual things that you have in common, maybe goals. It could be anything, as long as you connect on something. And I don't feel like a lot of people are, trying to do that necessarily when they talk to people. They're just trying to talk about themselves or what they're trying to promote and their stuff. So it's not really an engaging conversation. It doesn't feel mutually benefiting. But, collaborating with people is one of the reasons why I would say, this has been so successful as well. Because, whenever you do collaborate with people, whether you're doing something in common or you just want to, promote their work, you're actually doing cross-promotional stuff, because then people that may not know you in their network get to know you and vice versa. And then the audience gets the opportunity to find about both of you. So it's just a win-win situation for everybody.
Well, and to your point, I think the idea of networking, I think it makes people nervous. So in my advice column, I always put a networking tip at the end of every column to encourage people to get out there and communicate with one another. But I think what I really should start calling it is Natalie's connection tip of the week, because really meaningful networking is connection. And I think we get it into our minds that when you go to a networking event or a happy hour or whatever, that you have to give out as many business cards as you can. And instead of thinking about quantity, I think you should really think about the quality of the interaction. And is this somebody that you can help and that could possibly help you? And I always try to frame it in my mind when I'm meeting with somebody, how can I help them? Because if I start thinking about just what I need, all of a sudden my scope goes like this, and it becomes very narrow and focused to the point where it's no longer an interaction that is meaningful, but instead it's just a selfish interaction. And for me, that's not going to get me anywhere in the long term. But if I go in with a mindset of how can I help this person, it's amazing how all of a sudden the world expands and you find out that they can in turn help you usually pretty easily.
Yeah, networking events can definitely be highly beneficial if people are there to connect. I mean, you definitely make a good point on that. I actually started to get away from saying I want to network with people and saying I want to connect with people, because networking kind of has this idea or kind of picture of like, oh, I'm just there to push my business cards and tell you about me, more versus connecting. It's like, I'm there for you. I want to see how we can actually maybe build a relationship together. So I think maybe changing it from networking to connecting would be a good idea. I'm a big believer in that. So
I agree with you.
Go that route.
I agree with you.
But moving a little bit further along, in your experience as an entrepreneur and maybe getting started with the Post-Gazette or even doing your own podcast, what would you say is some of the initial struggles that you faced in the beginning, and how did you overcome those, and what was maybe some of the biggest lessons you learned?
Yeah, so in terms of initial struggles, I think going back to what we were saying earlier, just having enough confidence and courage to recognize that I had something of value to offer. And I think especially for women, it's a challenge, because our work is often undervalued in general. And I mean, that's shown through the pay gap, as it were. But I often feel like in the beginning, especially, I would give everything away for free to anybody just because I thought, well, I need exposure. I just need people to know my name or understand what I'm trying to do. But then I quickly realized, how does that help anyone in the long run? Because now they've devalued the work that I do, so they're not going to pay for it moving forward, and I've devalued myself. And so learning how to walk the line of saying, okay, I'm past the point now where I sort of have paid my dues, right? Because I think in the beginning, look, I still do things for free for people from time to time, not nearly as much as I used to, but I think there's a certain point where you have to stop and say, am I doing this because I really have to at this point, or am I just being a masochist that's afraid to say that, hey, I deserve to be compensated for my work? So I think there's that as a young entrepreneur. Something that I would have told myself early on is don't be so quick not to value what you do. Clearly, you think it's enough of a value that you're putting it out there. Other people will too. And I've also learned that when you undersell it, don't be surprised if then people take advantage, right? And one of my first clients I had, because I do digital media consulting, I sent him a proposal and what I thought was a very competitive number, and he hired me pretty much on the spot, and I heard through the grapevine, oh, she was so cheap, I thought it was going to be a lot more money. And I was like, damn it. Like, why didn't I realize? Because I didn't know. Like, so that's another way when you're new into a whole area, right, of work, and you don't know what people are charging, you need to ask people what they're charging. If that means calling a company, pretending like you're going to possibly be a client, and finding out what rates are, because sometimes you think I was in my mid-20s, so trust me, like any amount of money sounded like great to me, but you don't realize that there are certain standards set by these industries, and if you're way below them, you know, hey, it worked out, you know, I got the gig and it gave me a great foot in the door and it helped me put it on my resume and move me forward to better opportunities. But looking back, I'm like, oh, I really undersold myself. So I think learning how to negotiate for yourself is a real challenge, but I think it's something that if you can do that as early on as possible, that's going to save you a lot of stress moving forward. And also, don't be afraid to spend a little money to get yourself in a better position, meaning when you start working with contracts, take them to a lawyer. Have it done right the first time. Have those papers put in place. Spend that few $100s to have somebody actually implement something that then you can utilize moving forward, which I've really tried to do that with things that I've had to put in writing, and not only do it for a client, but say to my lawyer, okay, I would like you to make a generic enough contract that I can easily sub things in and out when need to, but I want this like done right. And that way I'm paying for it only once, but I'm paying, you know, for actual good work instead of trying to hodgepodge things together myself or looking online to trying to find contracts. Knowing when to spend a little bit of money can actually be great because you need to know how to protect yourself legally too. And you don't want to get into a situation where you find that somebody's just not going to pay you. And the third thing I would say is be careful when you go to those initial meetings. And this has happened to me, but it's happened to my friends too, where you think you're giving them your ideas because you want them to hire you, and then they don't hire you, but they took your ideas. So don't give them enough detail that they could implement it with another team. Make sure you leave it gray enough or vague enough that you can say, here are the things I've done in the past, here's some of the general things I can do for you, but if you want the details, then we need to sign a contract and I need a deposit up front. And always get some kind of a deposit or some kind of a retainer when you're doing any kind of consulting or business work, because just, you know, you don't want to be taken advantage of. And as more and more of us move into the independent contractor world, these are issues that are going to really start to apply. And I would also recommend if you are an independent contractor in any sense of the word, that you sit down with an accountant and you figure out what you can write off. There were so many things in the beginning that I did not know. Wait, I could write that off as a home office?
Right.
What? You know, my cable bill is part of my research because I do media. Like, you have no idea. You don't know. And so the earlier you learn these things. With me. I will. But the sooner you learn these things, the better you're setting yourself up for financial goals in the future. You don't want to be behind the 8 ball before you've even started. And I don't think a lot of us know these things because we're not taught them in school. Do you remember a financial literacy class in school?
We had those?
Right? Right? I don't even remember learning to balance a checkbook.
No,
and not that anybody does that anymore, but still to learn how to understand like how this all works, the basics. So let alone how do you talk to an accountant, when do you need contracts? These are things that unless you're in the middle of it, you may not realize. And these are all growing pains naturally, but it doesn't have to hurt that much.
Exactly. I mean, and you definitely shared and hit on a lot of good points that a lot of people don't know or understand or know things that you have to do. But those are definitely essential things that you need to do to set yourself up for success.
Yes.
So, from the accounting to doing the paperwork and then having the legal documents and also the point of, disclosing certain information until you actually get a deposit. Like, these are important things that people don't know up front.
Yeah.
But it's definitely good that you have the opportunity to share that. And so for somebody that is looking to kind of get into that space,
right.
they kind of, they already have the idea like, oh, okay. So that's definitely good. That was a lot of good insight for sure. Definitely appreciate you sharing on that. So a little bit further. So whenever you started setting the scene, what are some of the great experience for people that may not know what it is?
Yeah.
What are some of the great experiences that you've had on that? I mean, because how many episodes have you done with that so far?
4 years worth. So probably close to 200.
Whew,
yeah. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm like, why? How did this happen?
I mean, that is a lot of episodes. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time.
Long time.
So, what are some of the great experiences that you've got out of the places you've seen and things like that and documented? I mean, because you've done a lot.
I have to tell you,
episodes.
Yeah, I have to tell you, probably one of the best things that's come out of it is my relationship with Sarah Bachnick. So we were thrown together for the show. So when I came on as the scene editor, they'd separated the two columns. So I became the scene editor and Sarah became the style editor. They used to be kind of one thing. And so they were now two. And so they said to us, we want you at the Post-Gazette, we want you guys to do a weekly show. So the first few episodes were they were awkward because we're getting
used to each other.
We didn't know each other at all. And, she seemed nice. I hope I came off nice. But, I'm like, I hope this person's easy to work with. You have all of these thoughts running through your head. Meanwhile, she's the most incredible person you could ever work with. So the first few rounds of the show, we just sat in front of a TV like this, and we talked about, at the camera, and we're just like, here's what's going on this weekend. Sarah, what's going on with style? And then she'd say, so here are some of the trends. And then it would just show up on the TV, and it was horrible. And we were just like, we got to do something with this because we realized we liked doing this work. But we were like, we don't like it in this format. It feels stagnant. And you can't build an audience in that way.
Right.
So we thought, let's take it out on the community. So it started with us and one of our videographers. And so then they would shoot us, and we would do all different types of things in the community. And then it turned into, we could probably shoot this ourselves, and then that way we can take a lot longer. Because, everybody's on time crunches, and the videographers at the PG are so amazing. But they have a lot going on in a day, too. So we took over those responsibilities, which was great, because now I know how to shoot video, and then we learned how to edit, so now we do all the editing ourselves. So having learned how to do the whole process from, everything from start to finish, from production to hosting to editing to filming, that would be one takeaway that
sounds very familiar to something that I do.
You understand. And so there's that. And then, obviously, my relationship with her, she's now one of my closest friends, and she truly is an incredible person to work with because she's very detail-oriented. She's so patient because I can be a little crazy. I know that seems like how could I be crazy? But she's such a great person. She's such a calming force, and she knows her stuff. She's so brilliant. And so between the two of us, I feel like we really cover a lot of ground. We complement well. But in terms of things that we've done so many amazing things. So we've gotten to, we went to a winery and got to crush grapes in our feet like they did old school style with the big barrels. I mean, we've gotten to do so many incredible things. Just all of the places we've checked out, all of the people we've gotten to interview. We've gotten to do American Dream series where we interviewed immigrants from different parts of the world that call Pittsburgh their home that are doing wonderful work. We started an Extraordinary Women series where we highlight incredible women in our community that are making a difference. We've gotten to go on little trips. We've done Ogilvy. We've done all of these things. But I think what makes the show so successful and why we've connected with our audience is because we want everyone to feel like this city is theirs too. And so we try to be as inclusive as we can in terms of what we cover and who we talk to, and we try to just make everyone feel like you can be a part of the great things happening in Pittsburgh. So whether it's free events or things for the whole family or having them meet new people that maybe they've never heard of that are doing just extraordinary things, having those experiences, and then, of course, getting nominated for the Emmy, and then we documented our whole Emmy experience.
Congrats on that, too.
Thank you. And we've done Gettysburg. We've just done some crazy little road trips and just made a lot of great memories. And one of my favorites was when we went to Hope Haven which is an animal sanctuary, and I didn't realize how much fun goats were. I knew.
I gotta see this.
They're like hilarious. Little goats and little pigs. I mean, they're like amazing. So just all these like bizarre experiences, getting to, go out on the river and just do things. I could go on and on. It's just been such a journey. But what I love about it and what I recommend for people to do when they're feeling as though they're a little bit stuck at their job, because we've all been there where we feel like we've plateaued, find the next thing that you can learn, which is part of the reason that I think Setting the Scene has kept our interest. Because it has been such a journey, right? And so now we're at the point where, okay, we're getting nominated for things. What do we need to do to get to the next level? So now we've been really watching people that have won. And how do they film? What are they doing? What are their techniques? How can we take what good things that they're doing? So then we started judging shows. So then we would understand from the judge's perspective. So always learning and growing and being open-minded. And I think that helps you from stagnating at your job and prevents you from feeling fatigue or burnout. Because if I'm not growing or learning, what the heck am I doing there?
Right.
A paycheck is a paycheck. You can make money in a lot of places. So if you're not growing and learning, it's not necessarily always enough to just be doing it for the money.
Absolutely.
There needs to be more than that to keep you focused and to keep you energized.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of insight in this space, especially in the media aspect, which is what I love, and definitely want to pick your brain on a little bit more. And also, I definitely want to talk about the podcast that you have as well. But before we get to that, what is like some of the really great? Why do you think marketing and social media and all these different tools that we have at our fingertips, why do you think that is so important to businesses and things like that want to promote themselves, and why should they be using social media?
Okay.
Or media in general?
So you have to use social media. Like, it's non-negotiable. Okay, I'm speaking to the audience.
Yeah,
right now.
this is the one we got to pound in.
That's the moment. Because here's what I've learned from working in the world of journalism and media and marketing on all sides. It's all storytelling. So we're smart now, the consumer. We're not paying attention to ads because it's all white noise, and we're cynical. We've been shown ads now since the 70s and 80s in this format on a screen, right? So at this point, our generation and younger, they're not even looking at ads. It's not even a thing. So how do you get your message across? You have to tell a story. So how do you do that? You can do that visually with things like Instagram or Snapchat. You can do that on Facebook. You can do it on Twitter. You can do it with a blog. You can do it with a podcast. All of these things can be marketing tools. And minus the podcast, the other ones that I mentioned are all free. So, and podcasting you can also do pretty inexpensively if you want, or you can do it like this, which is just amazing. I'm still not over the lighting in here. It's wonderful. But point being, you need to utilize all these free platforms at your disposal. And so the thing that I have learned about is trying to tell people and explain to them why you need to invest in social. You're not going to see a return on investment immediately, because it's a building process, because you're building community. We need to get rid of the word consumer, and we need to get rid of the word client and replace it with community. So you need to be building a community because you want people to feel connected to you, right? So it's the community idea and the connection idea. And once you have those, then people will be interested in what you want to sell them, right? Because now they feel as though you're an authentic person, you're a genuine person, because they know you, they feel connected to you, they're part of this community world. And so when you look at something like an Instagram account and you see, that this person has, let's say they have 10,000 followers, but then you actually look at their photos and you see 20 likes. The first thing I think is,
no bueno.
The first thing I think is probably some of those have been bought, or the other thing, their engagement rate is so low, they're not really building a community. So all their efforts on this social media platform are going to waste.
Right.
So when you're building up your Instagram or your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever platform you want to utilize, you want to think of a cohesive branding message, and you want to create an editorial calendar that has a story-like thing that's happening every single week. This week we're tackling this concept. This week we're tackling this concept. You want all of your photos to have the sort of same vibe to them. This is a story, right? Instagram. This is what you want it to feel like. And so once you do that, then you can start playing with hashtags and concepts and product placement and things like that. But until you recognize that this is going to be a long-term investment, you're probably not going to see any changes for the first 6 months, because or small changes, because you're really just looking at a baseline. But then once you realize what's working and what's not, then you'll start to see larger spikes. And engagement is way more important than the number. So let's say you have 1,000 followers on Instagram, but let's say you have 80 to 90 likes on a post. That's a really great engagement rate.
Yes,
That's almost 10%.
Yeah.
So that means 10% of those people are actually following you. Wow.
Yeah.
So now you realize, okay, this is a strong audience here. What can I do now to interact with them? And so it has to be more about, like we said earlier, coming back to that, you can't talk at people.
Right.
You talk with people, you engage people, you interact with people, you bring them in. We've become very tribal. And all of these platforms lend itself kind of, for better or for worse, to that feeling. But because of that, once you find your tribe, then you can start your marketing process. So don't discount these platforms and think that they're not useful because you're not seeing an immediate ROI.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've talked about this even before we started rolling, but it is highly important, especially in this day and age. I mean, this is just the way we communicate.
Right.
And it can be, and it is highly beneficial if you use it in the right ways. And you can see a high return on it, when you're building up that community and you're actually engaging. One of the things that I see a lot of when people either comment or they like it and things like that is the people that manage the accounts don't engage with the people that just comment on your posts.
Right.
It's like, this person just engaged
Right.
with what you're doing. They like what you got.
Respond to them.
Exactly.
Like it.
Exactly. And it's also crazy when you think about even big companies that do their social media and when you get a response from, say, somebody that you watch their vlogs or whatever, and you comment and they actually respond, how does that make you feel?
Right.
Like, wow, this person actually engaged with me. Like, the engagement level is going to be like 10 times more because you actually responded. So people don't think about these things whenever someone is, commenting on a post.
Well, I think, too, you have to get... There are two ways of looking at Instagram or, in general, social media. Is this a personal account or is this a business account? So personal accounts are ego-driven. You cannot be ego-driven when you have a business account. It has to be a different headspace, a different mindset. So to your point, somebody likes your photo on a personal account, like, okay, that's cool. Well, okay, maybe you don't care as much. But if they like if you're trying to do this for a business, then you need to engage them. And so it's putting a different hat on and thinking, even though this is about me, it's not about me.
Right.
It's about news they can use. It's about inspiring and educating. What can I give to them? How can I help them? It's a way of looking at social media that is not through the personal lens, but instead the professional.
Absolutely. And that's something that I definitely want to talk about on the show a lot more, is just how people can actually use social media in a positive way and actually get their message across and use it effectively to build their business. Because that's something that we don't get a chance to talk about too much, but it is highly important in this day and age. And just getting people to first understand that and then seeing how they can actually utilize it for themselves to be able to build their business, I think adds a lot of value to people that will watch this show and to bring value to them to be able to do the things that they want to do too. And then getting to the point of like your own podcast, what inspired you to start your own podcast?
So, Kim Lyons, who's an incredible journalist here in the city of Pittsburgh, we've been wanting to do something for a while. And during the election season, we just thought this would be the perfect time to do it. The last glass ceiling is going to be shattered, and we'll be like, woohoo, women rock, and we'll do this like great podcast about women. And then it did not get shattered, and we were like, okay, now we really have to do this, because why are we still not there yet? So we wanted to unpack all of that, but we did not want the show to be political. We've had all different types of perspectives and all different types of women, and I want to keep that energy because I don't want to be political. I want to be above the politics. I like talking about the issues that impact us all because there are so many more things that connect us than divide us. And the things that divide us are put in our way as barriers to supporting and caring and uplifting each other. And I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is, okay, let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about ways we can fix these problems and come together from our different perspectives and find things that we can work on. And so that was the idea with the show. But so when we started the broadcast, we wanted to amplify women's voices in the community. And it has been very successful, and we've really enjoyed the experience thus far because, one, like you, I wanted to meet new people that I didn't know yet. And two, I wanted to share space to showcase the work of women doing wonderful things in the community and remind people, hold that mirror up and say, look how good we all are. Because there's so many mirrors being held up saying, look how bad we all are right now. And to me, there's really no anecdote to that feeling than love, and love meaning positivity and unity. And so the idea is, you can come on the show and you can be who you are, and I guarantee we're going to find some common ground that we can discuss your amazing projects with, or how you're making the world a better place. And what I always find interesting about working and talking with women is a lot of times they're just, they don't really toot their own horns very much because they're so busy doing it. They're so busy doing the work. And so part of it too was what I had said earlier in the hour, not having that confidence or courage when I was a younger woman. Had I felt like I could toot my own horn a little bit, maybe I would have not put myself in certain situations where I was taken advantage of in the professional sense, right? So here we want to create a space where it's like, it's okay to say that you're doing a great job because you are. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we're not talking about overblowing your ego, but it's okay to be proud of, for example, having somebody like Leila Zorando on, who's founded 412 Food Rescue. I mean, yes, like that is awesome. You are trying to end food insecurity. That is good. We want to encourage that, So finding ways to discuss topics that are meaningful without getting in the mud. That's kind of the goal with the show. And I think so far we've been pretty successful with it, and we seem to have a wide array of listeners. And I'm always, people always say to me, oh, well, when we first started, well, are you going to bash men on the show? And I'm like, why would I do that? Like, I didn't even understand that. And I said, no, of course not. I said, I don't even think we're going to really talk about men. And then they were like, well, why? What are you going to talk about then? Right. And I just thought it was funny that, and this was a guy that had asked me these questions, that, regardless of the context, it was like, oh, wait, we're not being included? What's this about? And it's like, well, it's not that you're not being included. It's not about you. And I think for certain groups that can be really hard to hear sometimes. This just isn't about you. It's not saying that you can't do something. It's just this particular thing just wasn't for you in this moment, and that's okay. Yeah. and I just, I think that trickles over into a lot of other things when people hear that something's meant for somebody. Oh, that means that they don't like us. It's like, it has nothing to do with you. Exactly. So we have a lot of male listeners, and they love the show because it brings them ideas and perspectives that they haven't heard before. And sometimes I think, especially now that we're past the Me Too movement, meaning it's post-Me Too movement, I think men maybe want to ask questions, and they want to learn, and they want to be better, and they just don't know if it's appropriate or how. And so I think, doing your own homework is the best way to educate, and we hope to educate and inspire through the broadcast. So just listen to how women engage and talk about their world, and I think you'll naturally have a better understanding about us. And it's just about doing a little bit of work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many episodes are you with that?
I think we're almost at 30 now, or around 30. Yeah, and I think it's about that. Kim's probably gonna yell at me because I should know the exact number, but it's everything runs together. It runs together, but it's been really a great experience, and we try to put one out every week. But there have been like some hiatuses in between, just for like family and personal things, and you know how it is. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard work to keep them going. But I think the audience is what motivates me, because we get so many people that say how much they enjoy the show and can't wait for the next episode and that sort of thing. And that makes me feel really good that we're putting good things out there, and that we're connecting with a lot of different types of people, men and women. And I just love that.
That is awesome.
It's positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we get closer to wrapping up, where do you see the future with everything that you're doing? I mean, like I said before, you're doing amazing things. I'm proud of all the work that you've been doing. So where do you see yourself going in like the next 2 to 5 years with everything that you're doing?
Probably just like total world domination.
I'm with it.
No, I continue to see myself moving forward with the advice column. I want to continue to build that platform on the national level that it is now. I want to continue moving forward with media work, but I would like to have a larger footprint in the near future at a much more national level with the video work that I'm doing. And I want to continue to build my social media and my digital media business, mostly because obviously it's great to have another job and another stream of income, but I really do I love helping companies recognize the power of social media and how they can use it to transform what they're doing into something that connects and inspires people. That is my goal with everything at the end of the day is how can we use transformative conversation to create something that is positive and impactful, that educates and inspires. If it's not educating and inspiring, I don't want any part of it.
Right. Absolutely. You're in it to add value to the people first.
Not to just be a voice. I want to do something that's much bigger than myself. It doesn't need to be about me. It needs to be about like what value can I bring to the community that can help shine a light on all the positive work being done, because I love putting other people in the spotlight and saying, look at this amazing person. We need to all support this person, and let's emulate this. Let's all be a little bit more like this.
That is awesome. So where's the best place for people to contact you, whether it's watching, Setting the Scene, or listening to your podcast, or even getting in contact with you? What's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, the best way they can reach me is probably through my email at the Post-Gazette. So it's Bencivenga, Bencivenga, at post-gazette.com. And you can look for me on Twitter at NBSEEN. You can find me on Facebook under Natalie Bencivenga, and you can find me on Instagram at Natalie Benci, Benci.
Awesome. And then as we get closer to wrapping up, one of the things that we always do on the end of our episodes is a 24-hour challenge.
Oh.
So, I don't think I got a chance to tell you at the beginning of the episode.
Good, a surprise.
But what's a 24-hour challenge that you would present to the audience that they can actually take action on within the next 24 hours of watching this episode? Because one of the things that we don't want to have happen is they watch this episode, hear all this incredible information and get inspired and motivated, and then don't do anything with it. So what's a challenge that you could present to the audience that they can do effectively within the next 24 hours?
What I like to challenge myself on often is connecting with three strangers that I've never met, whether I introduce myself to somebody at a grocery store or somebody that might look like they're just lonely at an event or standing by themselves. So connecting with 3 people and also doing a random act of kindness. I'm a big believer in paying it forward, whether it's paying for the person's groceries, that's standing in line behind you, or just opening the door for somebody, or saying hello to somebody, making eye contact with somebody, giving of yourself. So connect with 3 strangers and do a random act of kindness.
That is awesome. Those are definitely 2 good challenges for sure. Well, I definitely appreciate you being on the show, Natalie.
Oh, my goodness. I loved it. You're great.
We definitely got to do this again because, like I said, you got a lot of things going on, and it'll be definitely a nice little recap to kind of see where you are now and then see where you're at that point in time. So definitely appreciate you being on.
I appreciate you having me, and I'm so proud of you and the work that you're doing. I think this is fantastic.
I appreciate it. Well, we're definitely going to keep it going for sure. But so now that we know what Natalie does with her 24 hours, we want to know what you do with your 24 hours. Definitely make sure you like, comment down below if you accept that challenge. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will see you on the next episode.